Next news. Breaking news from the White House.
The G7 just signed its first ever declaration on illegal immigration. Let that sink in. Donald Trump walked into a room full of globalists, bent the agenda towards reality, and walked out with the world admitting what patriots have said for years. Borders matter. Sovereignty matters. And illegal migration shreds nations. And then Trump dropped the numbers that left the open borders machine gasping. Drugs crossing the border down 61%, maritime smuggling down 97.2%, while Trump racks up wins overseas. Back home, a Milwaukee judge got nailed for helping an illegal dodge ICE. An ICE officer got smashed by a van in New Jersey, and blue city radicals still want to abolish enforcement. You're watching the split-screen collapse of the Democrat lie. Now, the fight lands in your town. It lands on your street and your kid's future. Trump's 61% drop in drugs at the border and 97.2% crash in maritime drug flow, they're not abstract metrics for think tank blowhards. That means less poison in schools, fewer cartel pipelines into neighborhoods, fewer families wrecked by fentanyl. Trump is saving lives while the wrecking crew Biden built still thrashes inside the system. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris ended their term by dumping imported lawlessness into American communities. Now sanctuary politicians like New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani still preach that ICE is rogue and should be abolished. Hannah Dugan, a former Milwaukee County judge, got convicted for helping an illegal evade ICE and now faces up to 5 years disbarment and fines. I actually got to talk to President Trump about that very case, and you're going to see it. And in South Jersey, DHS named Eduardo Cruz Garcia as the illegal alien charged after hitting ICE with an ICE officer with the van. In Minnesota, 15 Antifa-linked leftists face criminal charges for conspiring to obstruct ICE. That's the stake: order or organized sabotage. And while we're talking about protecting your home and your family, let me pivot to something personal that caught my attention for a reason. Now, you've probably seen the clip of Joe Rogan sitting with Mel Gibson talking about people close to him who went through serious health struggles and then saw dramatic turnarounds. Rogan brings up light-based therapies and how they impact the body at the cellular level. Gibson says it straight, the stuff works. And that got my attention because in my own life I watched something very similar unfold. For a long time, my wife was dealing with constant discomfort and anxiety. It was one of those draining situations that wears a family down. And then we learned more through Jonathan Otto and my countless interviews with him right here on this channel. And then he revealed red light therapy to us. If you want to check it out for yourself, go to myredlight.com. Use NNN25 for individual items or NNN30 for bundles. Take a look and see what fits your routine. When the system fails you, you learn fast to find solutions that actually work. Now back to the madness, because the detail that blows this wide open is not just that Hannah Dugan got convicted, it's how she did it. Federal agents sat on a courthouse bench waiting to detain Eduardo Flores Ruiz, and the complaint says that Dugan sent those agents away through double doors to the Chief Judge's office. Then the target slipped out. A judge in a courthouse running interference against federal law enforcement. And that is the tweet stack we're about to rip through, because every post tonight shows the same pattern. Trump enforces and the open border machine obstructs. So here's President Trump at the G7 on the Declaration on Illegal Immigration.
We found a great deal of unity here at the G7, and we signed a declaration on illegal immigration, the first time ever for a G7 statement. They did a beautiful statement. We signed other agreements to step up and to really coordinate and spend a lot of time coordinating drug trafficking and the stopping of drug trafficking, which is crazy. It comes through Mexico, comes through the southern border, the little that comes through. They find a way, they put it, they're genius. If they would use that genius for good, they'd be very rich people. They have it in engines, they have it in hubcaps, they have it in areas you wouldn't even believe. They have it in the structures of cars. Most incredible thing. but we've done a great job on it. We have drugs coming through the border are down 61%. Drugs coming through water, the sea, ocean, sea, Gulf, down 97.2%. That's the ones that get hit. Just like we hit the Iranian minesweepers and mine droppers, they call them. They dropped. Who would have 28 mine droppers? Who has 28 mine droppers? They actually had them, but they don't have them anymore. We hit them just like we hit the drug dealers. But drugs are down by water 97%, and over 60% they're down. And now we're going to go and focus on the land. They come through Mexico. Mexico has lost control of their country. The cartels run Mexico, and it's sad. And the president's a very good woman, but she's a very scared woman. The drug cartels are totally running Mexico. It's not even close.
So Trump laid it out. Even the G7 is finally admitting illegal migration and cartel trafficking are real threats, and the human cost gets uglier. This next graphic blaming Biden, Harris, and the Democrats for what they unleashed. The legacy of Biden, Harris, and Democrats will be the thousands of Americans attacked, robbed, raped, scammed, shot, stabbed, and or killed by the millions of third world illegal aliens by Democrats brought into our country. Our children will pay the cruel cost for decades. Who will ever forget those scenes? So the graphic makes the charge plain. Open border policies didn't just fail. They put Americans in danger. Next, Trump takes direct aim at activist judges and courts he says are helping Biden imported criminals stay here. This is the moment that I spoke to President Trump when he stepped off Marine One, asking him about Judge Dugan.
Mr. President, what's next for cleaning up the courts after Judge Dugan's arrest?
Yeah, go ahead.
What's next for cleaning up the courts after Judge Dugan's arrest?
Oh, it's terrible. What happened there is terrible. That could happen with a judge is so ashamed. And we have to bring our country back from all these criminals that Biden allowed to come in. These are world-class criminals and people that are insane, people from jails, murderers, drug addicts, drug dealers. And, we have a country. We have to be proud of our country. We can't let these people stay. The courts are allowing them to stay. And we're just not going to allow it. So hopefully the Supreme Court will come to the rescue of our country. Thank you, Mr. President.
How I got that question? That's a story for another show. But Trump says the courts are letting world-class criminals remain in the country and that the Supreme Court needs to step in. Now we get the case that proves the point. Milwaukee judge now convicted after helping an illegal alien. A federal judge upheld the felony conviction against former Milwaukee County Judge Hannah Dugan, who was found guilty of helping an illegal evade ICE. Dugan now faces up to 5 years in prison, disbarment, and steep fines.
He meets his attorney in the hallway and walks towards Circuit Court Judge Hannah Dugan's courtroom. Along the way, he passes plainclothes federal agents who are sitting on a bench. They are there to detain him. After Flores Ruiz walks by, the agents turn to each other and appear to confirm his identity amongst themselves. But a few moments later, Judge Dugan and another judge approach the agents sitting on the bench. A criminal complaint against Dugan later said she was alerted to their presence by a court official. That complaint says during this interaction, Dugan and the agents disagreed over the type of warrant they had to arrest Flores Ruiz. According to the complaint, Dugan ordered the agents to go to the chief judge's office. Video shows her pointing them through a double door. She then turns back to speak with other agents further down the hall and orders them through the doors as well. Shortly after that, with the agents gone from the hallway, Eduardo Flores Ruiz and his attorney exit into the hallway through a different door. As they walk down the hall toward the elevators, they pass another plainclothes federal agent. Neither they nor Judge Dugan seem to have noticed at the time. That agent motions to another to follow Flores Ruiz. Security video shows Flores Ruiz exiting through a basement exit. Upstairs on the 6th floor, the other agents have left the chief judge's office and worked their way downstairs. Flores Ruiz left the building onto 9th Street. Videos of the street shows the agents catching up to him. Flores Ruiz runs across 10th Street while trying to get away, but the agents catch him and arrest him.
And then they arrested the judge. So that shows how the system gets sabotaged from the inside. Next, the Justice Department details a New Jersey case where a legal alien assaulted and injured a federal officer. The illegal alien charged with assaulting is alleged that the defendant weaponized his vehicle and conducted an egregious assault on a federal law enforcement officer during the course of his official duties. So this is a screenshot from, looks like a body camera. So it's not just obstruction in a courthouse. Federal agents getting hit in line of duty. DHS follows with the arrest and charging of the suspect after video captured the moment in South Jersey.
You'll only see on 10 shows the moment a traffic stop by ICE agents in South Jersey turns violent. Around 9:30 this morning at Route 72 and Mermaid Drive, a man ICE says they were trying to arrest is seen stopped at a red light in a white van. The grainy video shows multiple vehicles surrounding that van. Seconds later, agents get out and move in. Then the driver suddenly forces his van between an agent and nearby vehicles. He seems to sideswipe the agent. The agent appears to lose his balance and falls to the ground.
So while ICE officers are being attacked for doing their jobs, the media is still trying to paint the real villains as the victims. Next, DHS tears into Reuters, says the claims about deaths in ICE custody are flat out false. There's been no spike in deaths consistent with data over the last decade. As of May 29th, death rates in custody under Trump administration are 0.008% of the detained population. Comprehensive medical care is provided from the moment individuals arrive throughout the entirety of their stay. For many illegal aliens, this is the best health care they have received in their entire lives. They're responding to a Reuters report that says death rate in ICE immigrant detention centers more than doubles under Trump. So DHS says the press got caught pushing a dishonest narrative. Meanwhile, in New York, the insanity gets uglier. Mayor Mondami doubling down on sanctuary city policies, calling to abolish ICE.
Mamdani is ramping up his radical rhetoric after border czar Tom Homan suggested deploying more ICE agents.
These kinds of threats, as you've said, from Tom Homan and the federal administration, they're not new, and neither will our response be. We continue to be proud of being a sanctuary city. We continue to be ready to stand up for our immigrant neighbors, and we continue to be ready to use every single tool at our disposal. And I've said to the president directly that I believe that ICE raids are cruel and they do nothing to serve in the interests of public safety. And I do believe it's a rogue agency that should be abolished because we need an approach to immigration in this country that has more humanity at the heart of it.
You know, we've heard the mayor say things like this before. He's doubling down once again. So let's live in a world for a moment where he gets his wish and ICE is abolished in cities and states across the country.
We would live in a society that is significantly less safe. Places like New York would be utterly bankrupt because, remember, under the Biden administration with the open borders policies that only were 4 years, New York City was going broke. Mayor Adams was asking for $12 billion from the federal government to pay for all the services that illegal aliens were costing the city. And that was just on a short period of time. So if you actually got rid of ICE, we would see murder skyrocket. We'd see crime skyrocket. We would all be poorer, less safe, and it would be a devastating effect because you cannot have ICE and the border go hand in hand. If you stop enforcing internal immigration laws, the border will be overrun again because part of the deterrence is the fact that people, once they get in here, aren't getting to stay anymore, which we didn't have under sort of the open border Biden policy.
So while blue city politicians shield illegals and trash ICE, the street muscle on the left taking it further, DOJ moves on 15 Antifa-linked activists accused of conspiring to attack ICE in Minnesota.
Activists are facing new charges in Minnesota. The suspects reportedly have links to Antifa and were aiming to violently oppose federal immigration enforcement. So there are consequences for that, and Garrett Tenney has more. Hi, Garrett.
Yeah, Dana, prosecutors say those 15 individuals are associated with several Antifa-aligned groups. They wanted to see a more violent and militant resistance to ICE in the Twin Cities. The Justice Department says these groups and individuals helped supply, train, and organize members for demonstrations like this one back in January, where a few dozen people were armed with shields and used barricades to block off the entrances to the Whipple Federal Building. In one Facebook post, one of the defendants, Cameron Kennedy, blasted those calling for and insisting on peaceful protests, saying, "I want to make this as clear as I can. You will never win with nonviolence alone. Ever. No one has, no one will. You absolutely need militants to win." Wow. But as he was leaving court yesterday, Kennedy insisted he didn't do anything wrong, that he was just trying to stand up for his neighbors, and that these charges are politically motivated.
They arrested us because they're trying to find a larger movement. They're trying to hit the rest of Minneapolis. And I think we are just the tip of the iceberg with this. They are definitely trying to come after people more for political reprisal.
All 15 individuals are charged with conspiring to impede or injure a federal officer, and only 2 are accused of actually assaulting an officer. Prosecutors aren't saying if any officers were actually injured in those incidents, but they say the fact that they were calling for violence and organizing violent confrontations easily could have led to that.
So that's the chain and full radical rhetoric, then organized action against federal officers. Next comes the cleanup. DHS says ICE is still arresting the worst of the worst, including child sex offenders, violent predators, and drug traffickers, calling it common sense. Americans don't want criminals in their community. Under Trump and Mullen, we'll never stop removing the worst of the worst from our communities. So after the arrest, the less favorite excuse falls apart fast. J.D. Vance is next with the simple truth. You don't wait for every illegal alien to commit a violent crime before you enforce the law.
We take in immigrants. We take in people who don't have or who are having a hard time. How do you justify both things?
So let me say first a couple things, Whoopi. So number one, the book is actually way less political than you might think if you were just watching this, because obviously we're getting into the issues of the day.
Right.
95% of the book is really not about politics. I kind of have to write about politics because I'm the vice president, but I want to answer your question.
Right.
So fundamentally, if you think about what is immigration enforcement, immigration is law enforcement. It's somebody who has broken a law. A law enforcement officer has to show up and enforce that law.
Mm-hmm.
Now, inherently, sometimes that process is not always going to be pretty if you capture a video clip of it, in the same way that if you arrest somebody for committing a violent or a nonviolent crime, sometimes it's not always pretty. What I'm saying is the Catholic faith is actually I think it strikes the right balance here. It says, the Christian faith, I think this is true of Protestants and Catholics, that you can have borders.
Yeah.
You're allowed to enforce your borders. That means the law enforcement piece of it. But you also have to take certain precautions and certain care, okay? And again, your argument is fundamentally, Whoopi, you're saying that we don't strike the right balance. I disagree with you about how we apply that, but nobody hopefully is saying we're not allowed to have a border.
No,
what I'm saying is that in order for us to actually enforce the law, you can't set a standard that says you're not allowed to deport anyone unless they've committed a violent crime. You've got to enforce the law equally.
So let me do my follow-up.
You don't have to raise your hand.
Let me do my follow-up.
Yes, I do.
Because you were talking.
You have to enforce the law equally. Equally. So here's the moral center of the whole story. Donald Trump forced the G7 to sign the first declaration in its history on illegal immigration. At the exact moment, America is watching the domestic open borders cartel crack in public. Hannah Dugan didn't just make a paperwork mistake. She helped an illegal alien evade ICE. Edward Cruz Garcia didn't just resist, he hit an ICE officer with a van. Cameron Kennedy and the Antifa-linked Minnesota crew didn't just protest, they conspired to obstruct enforcement and preached militancy. Zohran Mamdani doesn't just disagree with policy. He wants to abolish the agency standing between your community and imported chaos. Biden built the pipeline. These people protect it. But Trump is smashing it. And that's why the left screams every time ICE cuffs somebody and every time the numbers prove enforcement works. So here's where this goes. Next, the Trump administration needs more deportations, faster removals, harder prosecutions for anyone who obstructs ICE, and a Supreme Court that stops activist judges from functioning like concierge services for foreign criminals. J.D. Vance nailed it. You cannot enforce the law if you want to invent a fantasy standard that says nobody gets deported unless they already committed a violent crime. That is how nations end. And Trump just dragged the G7 towards sanity, slashed drug flows by 61% at the border and 97.2% at sea, and exposed the entire open borders machine from courthouse chambers to Antifa street cells. If Zohran Mamdani wants to campaign for abolishing ICE, let him own every consequence. If Democrats want to defend the wreckage that Biden left behind, let them do it in public. Drop your take in the comments. And send this to the person still pretending enforcement is cruelty. And keep your eyes on this channel. We're not taking our foot off their neck. And make sure you get the notifications from me when YouTube fails you. That's why we set up this number you see on the screen. All you got to do is text raw feed to 844-840-4963. and stay connected and get the inside track with a text message from me every night. And make sure you're celebrating America 250 by going to the merch shelf below this video or shop.nextnewsnetwork.com.
The system controls information. Information control is power. They don't want you to see this. The truth only survives together. They don't want this shared. Share this now. You know out.